I wanted to, to write about this a forensic archaeologist, and Andy is an archaeologist, but not a forensic one. So he introduced me to a woman called Lucy Sibben, who is quite well known in the UK as a forensic archaeologist. And she was actually digging up a house in Brighton. I live in Brighton, actually, quite near Ruth Ware. We're good friends. And she was actually digging up the garden of a guy who had been convicted of a series of murders. And she was actually looking, for victims, which is, such an awful thing to have to do. So I talked to her and to another archaeologist called Lindsay Harvey, who's a bones expert. So I sort of took their expertise, and yes, in the Janus stone, they're digging in the garden of what had been a children's home, but before then had been a Roman villa. And I'd learned that sometimes you find children's bodies buried under doorways, which are sort of offerings to Janus, the god of doorways and of beginnings and endings. So hence the title, the Janus stone. And in the house at Sea's End, the bodies are from the Second World War. So I wanted to kind of bring it up to date, as I'd done prehistory and then I'd done Roman. And I wanted to House at Sea's End is set in a made-up place called Sea's End, but it's actually based on a place called Haysborough in Norfolk, which is kind of being slowly eroded by the sea, and all the houses are falling into sea. It's very sad, really, but it has unearthed amazing things. And in fact, the oldest human footprints outside Africa were found in Haysborough in Norfolk. But Lindsay has told me, and Lucy have told me some really interesting little things, about archaeology. And one of the things that I think it was Lindsay who told me this, that I've never forgotten, was that if you have nettles in your garden, or nettles, there could be a body there, because you can't get nettles unless there's some sort of human interaction. So I guess somebody could just have had a wee there, but there could be a body, and that's something that archaeologists look for. A big clump of nettles could be a body. And I mean, that's so interesting, isn't it? It makes you look at things in an entirely different way. Funny enough, I'm rereading Dying Fall now. There it is, because in book 15, there's something that happens in that echoes. So I just kind of check what happened. Yeah, so it's been one of the real thrills and real privileges of writing a long series, is that characters that just in the first book, in Crossing Places, are just sort of walk-on characters, now become big characters. And I think for me, the one that I've enjoyed the most, and perhaps has been the biggest surprise, is Cathbad. So there's a druid character, that appears in the Crossing Places, and he's maybe a little bit sinister in the Crossing Places, and he's a suspect. So it's a bit of a spoiler to say that he's still in the books, but I don't think he changes, but I think everyone's attitude towards him changes. So by Dying Fall, he's Ruth's good friend, and he and Ruth go up to Blackpool, which is where Nelson's from, and they're investigating the case of somebody who thinks, Ruth's old university friend, who thinks that he's found King Arthur. And then has been murdered. So Ruth is investigating that, and Cathbad goes with her, and he's kind of, he's like a familiar. He's a good friend. I like writing about men and women who have a friendship. There's nothing more to it than that. And he's the godfather of her child, because she is a child by this time. So Cathbad has been a character that I've really enjoyed writing about. And in The House at Sea's End, which I have to say is one of my favourites too, there is a scene where Cathbad and Judy, the sort of no-nonsense police officer, get together, and I hadn't planned that at all, until they are together in this house in a snowstorm, and I thought, oh, what are they doing? And that's what they're doing.